right. There we go. All right, and we'll do the same Menti process if you guys want to go to menti.com. Otherwise, you can grab your phone and scan that QR code. We'll do a couple icebreakers while we wait for other people to enter the meeting.
So do you have it going? Because I went to menti.com and entered the code and it took me to, oh, now, never mind, now I got it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I had to press another button. Thanks. All right, so what's your guys' favorite way to move during the fall? It's starting to finally feel like fall. This was a good weekend to get out and enjoy the crisp mornings and afternoons. This person's raking. I don't know if you guys are big fans of raking, but I grew up under a lot of oak and maple trees, so it was always one of my ways to get moving back home. All right, we got some walkers, cycling. Driving to Children's Mercy today. I see they just got the lines painted for the new bike lane on Gillum, which is great. It's extended all the way from which road?
Brush Creek
to south. Yeah, all the way from Brush Creek, I think now. Pretty nice. Walking around the block, nice. And we got a runner. Awesome. All right. So what motivates you guys to do those activities and get out and be physically active? I use this picture because it looks like this lady is strongly motivated by her dog to go and walk walk her dog in the snow, stay fit. Great. Mental health, great. I'm gonna guess that was Bill. I think he knows that the biggest benefit of staying physically active is mental health, alongside being physically fit, not to go stir crazy. Awesome. That's especially important during the winter. And enjoy the weather, even if there is snow on the ground. Just got to bundle up a little bit. Kids and pets, yeah. All right. And this kind of relates to our conversation today, but we also want to get an idea of where you guys are coming from and what your work in this sector is. So what's your role in relation to the mass media sector? For example, if you're a marketing director, just give us a brief little summary of what you do. Digital marketing manager, physical activity professional. I think that's a couple of us in this group. Nonprofit fundraising, communications director, awesome. And I know there's a lot of people that aren't in this meeting that have, various other positions and things in the realm of mass media. So that's great. Awesome. Well, I will pass it on over to Robin, and he'll kind of start us off with the general direction of what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our second meeting of the mass media sector. Last time we met, it was mostly to give you an overview of what the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan is and what the mass media sector within the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan hopes to accomplish. Today, we're going to continue with what we finished with at the end of last meeting, which is identifying strategies for the mass media sector to create safe and equitable opportunities for physical activity in our region. Before we go too much further though, since we've got a good sized group here, I think we can probably take a couple minutes and just introduce ourselves, since that won't take too much time. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Robin Shook. I'm an associate professor at Children's Mercy and UMKC School of Medicine, and I'm the director of Weighing In. And Weighing In is a program at Children's Mercy that seeks to align efforts related to healthy lifestyles in our region. And we are the backbone organization for the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. And so now I'll kind of hand it over or let my colleague Bryce introduce himself.
Hey guys,
And then
I'm
you
Bryce.
Bryce, you can call on someone to introduce themselves now.
Sounds good. Awesome. Yeah, I'm a research assistant to at Children's Mercy, and I'm basically a support person with the development of all 8 of the sectors with the KCPA plan, and excited for the developments to come with mass media. And I'll pass it on over to our co-lead, Melinda Shahane.
Yes, hello, I'm Melinda Shane and co-lead of the Mass Media Group. And I am a digital marketing manager for UMB Bank, where I oversee our website and personalization efforts. I'm kind of new in that role, but I've been in marketing for over 20 something years, showing my age, but so I have a long background in marketing, but I will switch it over to Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Adarante, and I'm with the Masonic Cancer Alliance, which is the outreach network of the University of Kansas Cancer Center. And I'm part of their outreach department, and we travel around the state of Kansas and Western Missouri and promote wellness and cancer prevention, as well as do free skin and prostate cancer screenings. And I'll turn it over to Brooke, who I work with.
Hi, I'm Brooke, and like Ashley said, I'm also with the Masonic Cancer Alliance and the University of Kansas Cancer Center. And basically, I do exactly what she said. We do the screening program throughout the entire state, and we are looking into kind of the spectrum of cancer care on that whole continuum. So this definitely falls in that area. Oh,
Awesome.
Amy.
Maybe we'll send it on
Amy.
over to Amy. Yeah.
Super. Hi, I'm Amy Scrivener. I am the relatively new Director of Development and Communications for Bike Walk KC. So Bike Walk KC is one of the leading pedestrian bicycle advocacy groups in the nonprofits in the region. We're really focused on creating safe, equitable spaces and infrastructure to support everyone's choice of activity and really creating streets as places for people. I am also married to an endurance cyclist, so I am kind of forced to be physically active, though it does not come naturally to me. So I have my husband to thank for that. So I'm excited to be a part of it. I did watch the recording from the last meeting, so I apologize for missing the first one.
Yeah, glad you could make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Who else? Let me look. Elaine.
Hey everyone, my name's Elaine Stoltz. I'm from American Theater Guild. We're actually presenters of Broadway shows across 14 markets. Kansas City is one of them. And I've known Melinda for quite a long time. She invited me to attend this group because we have a long history of working in marketing. But American Theater Guild also, we have a program called Staging the Future, and I'm the director over community outreach. And our focus really is equity in the arts, as well as the opportunity to provide performing arts education to underserved markets.
Awesome, great.
How about Shelley?
Hi, I'm Shelley Summer. I manage the Weighing In program at Children's Mercy, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm sitting in my office with my mask on because I am joined today by Veronica Vidal. You will hopefully see more of her in the future.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Today is Veronica's first day with us, and part of the work that she's going to be doing is supporting the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan broadly. But we're thrilled to have her again onboarding today, so we're just threw her right in. And
Great. And I think
anyone else
Bill's the
left?
last one. Yeah. Last but not least.
Hi, I'm Bill Brandmeier, and I just can't get enough of Bryce and Robin and Shelley. So I just try to show up anytime they have a meeting. I just want to be there. So I am the sector lead for the sports sector, but I also run a foundation called Sharewaves. And Sharewaves is powered by Sports Radio 810 WHB, where we share our airwaves with nonprofits that use sports and physical activity to connect to kids. And so the whole fundamentals of our nonprofit is to promote physical activity in under-resourced communities. And we do that through sharing the airwaves on 810 and also finding ways to create content that will drive our messages home. I want to be a part of the mass media group because I feel like there's an incredible opportunity to share all the hard work that Bryce and Shelley and Robin have taken the leadership on, and that all these sectors have done over the last year and a half. And adding the sports sector to that, we just have a lot of information and a lot of great news to share with Kansas City. And I'm excited to be a part of the team that figures out how to tell the story.
Yeah, and just, we know Bill well, of course, and Bill is a great example of what I think is a key strength of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan, which is cross-sector collaborations. So we all kind of live in multiple different spaces in our lives. We tend to get put in buckets at times, but really we sit with our feet in lots of different circles. Bill is a great example of this because of his work in both with the radio station and with the sports sector. So that's a natural cross-sector collaboration, in addition to the other things that he also is an expert on. So just a great example of strength of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. Here's our outline for today. It's pretty brief. As I mentioned, today we're going to focus on strategy prioritization. And we've got some great ways to kind of facilitate that discussion. Before we get to that, at the end of our last meeting, some people were asking about what our current mass media physical activity campaigns that have been that are currently ongoing, either nationally or regionally. And so I'll share with you just a couple examples that I've got related to that. I guess before we dig into that, Melinda, do you have any other comments before we get started?
No, I just want to thank everyone for joining us again and coming back and learning more about mass media. And as we move forward, we're going to start getting deeper into, today it's all about kind of setting the strategies, but we'll get deeper into starting to set up some tactics as well. So I know these first couple meetings are still kind of getting used, everyone knowing everybody and, kind of that giving that overview, but the deeper we get into these meetings, we'll be doing more hands-on work.
Yeah, well said, Melinda. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and just show you just a couple current mass media campaigns that are currently ongoing. And so the first one is the Move Your Way campaign. So most people, I think, are familiar with the dietary guidelines for Americans. It used to be the food guide pyramid. Let's see, Shelley, remind me that then it became the plate. I think it's still my plate. Is that right? For dietary recommendations? Yeah. So most people are at least, even if you don't know what the guidelines are, you're familiar with the concept of the dietary guidelines for Americans, which is the federal government's official recommendations for what Americans should be consuming. The physical activity sister to that is the physical activity guidelines for Americans. So this has been around for about a little over 10 years. the physical activity guidelines, and it is for adults. It's 1 hour of physical activity, 150 minutes of physical activity per week. For kids, it's 60 minutes per day. There are a few other caveats and additional details for that, but that's really kind of beside the point. But to share the message around the physical activity guidelines, the Department of Health and Human Services has created the Move Your Way campaign. And the Move Your Way campaign is for use both by the federal government and also for other stakeholders to use. So if you go to the website, they have all of their campaign materials broken down by demographic groups, so adults, older adults, parents and kids, pregnancy, things like that. And it also has specific materials for professionals. So this could be a physical activity professional, it could be a healthcare professional. And so if you click on some of these, you can find all the different pre-made federal government fact sheets in both English and Spanish. There are videos, pre-made videos that you can embed in your own website. Let's see, there's pre-made social media messages, graphics, and GIFs or GIFs, whatever you call them, pre-made Facebook content. All of these things have both the guides made or the graphics made and a description for how to title them and format them, things like that. So the Move Your Way campaign is really quite strong in terms of the professional nature around the campaign. These have all been developed by ad agencies. They've been market tested. They are freely available for other individuals and groups to use. So that's on the pro side. The con side is that they are all still trademarked under the physical activity guidelines by the federal government. These are not tailored to specific regions. They are not tailored to specific organizations, for example, like the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. So there may be some options to use Move Your Way materials for a mass media campaign, or it may not make sense to do so. Another campaign by the federal government is through the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. They have a physical activity, nutrition, and obesity branch within the CDC. And their program is called Healthy People, Healthy Nation. And their goal is to get 27 million Americans to become more physically active by 2027. And there's a lot of support within CDC for programming and initiatives to do that. Likewise, with Department of Health and Human Services, they have their own resource page where you can use their design and logos and materials for your own campaigns. So here's information on the design template, usage guidelines. There are badges that you can use on websites, pre-made Facebook posts, pre-made other social media posts, lots of fact sheets and presentations that you can download, both for the general public and for specific groups. So for example, this one is if you happen to work for a county health department, you can use their pre-made presentations for the role of public health in Active People, Healthy Nation. Here's their social media and Facebook frames. And there's some other additional information on this website as well. So again, similar to the Move Your Way campaign, this is a pre-made, professionally designed mass media campaign that has been tested and is freely available. But of course, it's not tailored to specific regions, groups, or initiatives. The last one that I'll mention is a separate CDC repository. It is the CDC State and Community Health Media Center. And if you go to this website and you have a login, or if you've created a login, you can search their database for different media that has been created. And you can search it by the type of media material, television, radio, print, the cost, the current or historical or archived campaigns, and specific campaigns that may have been created for specific groups. So for example, the CDC has all of their media campaign materials on here, but so for example, has many different regions and municipalities and organizations. So for example, let's see, I was looking at one earlier, and let me pull it up. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. So let's see what types of physical activity campaigns have been created there. And search. This happens to be, look, for some reason it pulled up information on breastfeeding. Here's healthy eating and staying active while you're pregnant. So handouts, there's a couple other handouts. Looks like these are mostly printed materials. There are some others that Bryce and I were looking at earlier today that are commercials, television or video commercials, radio commercials. So a variety of different resources that are available in this media center. Now, of course, some of these, for example, that are created for the CDC are more generic in nature. Some of these other ones, for example, this one from the university or from Colorado, it of course it is for the specific campaigns that Colorado Public Health created. So it'll have the Colorado logos and messaging and things like that on there. So again, there may be some useful resources here, or it may not be relevant to what this group might be interested in. So those are really kind of the three existing mass media campaigns around physical activity. There are others such as like NFL Play 60, but those are quite well done, but they're not freely available for others to use. For example, NFL Play 60 materials, you would have to be a partner organization with NFL Play 60. And that is, we would fall under that actually, because that exists in all NFL cities. So we would be one of them, but still you would have to come up with create an agreement with the Kansas City Chiefs and NFL Play 60 for those types of mass media materials. So with that, I wanted to just go back to one thing from the previous meeting that we had last month. We talked about some historical completed campaigns. One was Verb, and I mentioned that Verb was a huge, very expensive, it was almost $500 million worth of appropriations for this program, but it was a mass media physical campaign that was done in the early 2000s. And I think I played a video for it, but no one could hear my video. So I'm going to try this again, and it's a short video, so it won't take too long to go over this. But these commercials were played if you were a kid and watching Nickelodeon in the early 2000s, you probably recognize the Verb commercials. And Bryce, give me a thumbs up if you can hear this.
Nope.
Okay, let me just save the system. Oh, whoops. Nothing, Bryce?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm not going to waste time trying to troubleshoot that.
You can share the link in the
Yeah,
chat. Watch it after.
I'll share the link to, I'll share the link and you guys can watch it on your own. So there's the verb campaign, and I'll throw in the chat the other one from the city of Columbia, Missouri, from about 10 years ago, their mass media campaign. So that's just a little bit of a background on some existing mass media campaigns. Did anybody was there any
I
questions?
was just going to say, when you share on Zoom, when you share videos, I've learned this the hard way. When you do the screen share, there's a little button down at the bottom, then you have to click the little box that says share with audio. If you don't, it doesn't allow you to do the audio.
Yeah, and I was doing that, and I troubleshooted it with Bryce beforehand, and it was still giving me problems. So it's not
technology.
Yeah, technology, right? Okay, so if there aren't any other questions of that, well, I'm going to hand it over to Bryce, and Bryce is going to lead us through the next activity that we've got planned to kind of to talk a little bit more about some of the strategies that we started with last meeting.
Awesome. Yeah, Amy, I like your recommendation too, to have Robin sing it, but I'm not sure he'd be too up for that one. Sweet. All right, so we're gonna basically use a platform that allows us all to collaborate together in basically like a shared workspace. So we're gonna use this thing called Mural. I'm gonna post the link in the chat right now, so you guys can actually navigate onto the same screen as me, and we can all work within the same workspace. I think everybody's on a computer. It's pretty easy to use on a computer. You'll follow this link. You'll be able to go in as a visitor. We won't be able to see who you are. You'll just kind of be like a random animal that it assigns you to. And then you'll basically be able to navigate as I would be able to. If you're on a phone, that's okay. Or if you don't want to contribute and you just want to talk on video, I can totally put in whatever you're saying. So I can see a couple different people are already in the document. That's great. And I'll kind of show you guys the general structure of how we're going to be working in this workspace today. So there's a lot going on, but we're basically going to go from the top left-hand corner. I see the visiting lobster there up in the left. And then we're going to go straight down to a thing called a pick chart. And then we'll go over to the main bulk of how we're going to be prioritizing our strategies today. So this is the voting that we did last meeting. These were our strategy rankings, 1 through 4. It looks like strategy 2 rose to the top. Strategy 1 was right behind it. And then 4 was pretty close to 1. And 3 was towards the bottom. If you guys would like to kind of remind and refresh your memory as to how we got to this point, you can refer to all of the strategies on this list right here. You can see what the strategy is, and then how likely is it to be implemented locally. This is how you guys voted. And then implementation the next 3 years, 5 to 10 years, and then how likely it is to improve physical activity and health. So those are all considerations we can make today. But in order to get a more complex view, an accurate depiction of where these strategies rank versus one another and how they fit into the usage in the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan and moving forward as the mass media sector, we're going to use this thing called a pick chart. So that's right here. PIC stands for possible, implement, challenge, and kibosh. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to go from strategy 1 to strategy 2, 3, and then 4. You each have a circle that you can move around on this pick chart. You're going to use 4 circles. You'll choose 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think there's enough circles for the people in the meeting, but if we run out of, like, let's say number 4s, you can just right click, you can duplicate or copy and paste things. It's pretty easy to navigate on here. There are some considerations that I want to make before we use this Mural application. One being, there's a lot of people working on the same document, so we want to make sure we're not like adjusting what other people are typing, saying, or dragging and dropping. Just work with, basically your own responses. And then the second thing is if you're on a laptop, then you're going to want to go over to these Zoom settings. You can click there and you're going to click trackpad mode. This is going to allow you to pinch to zoom and then use 2 fingers to navigate through the screen. If you're on a regular desktop, you can use the mouse mode where you'll zoom in with the scroller and then click and drag to move. So with that being said, it looks like everybody's in our document here. Let's start with strategy 1. So you can grab your circle and we want you to rank strategy 1 based on its impact for Kansas City, low to high, and then its difficulty in implementing within Kansas City. So this would be easy to hard. Once we've all placed our number on the pick chart, I'm going to grab this sticky note and I'm going to basically place it where I think the average would be for all of our responses. And then we can use those to start our prioritization process over here.
Okay, I have to admit that was a lot of information, and
Yes,
my and my nose is right up on the screen, just trying to read all the information. So
Sure.
I may have more questions as I get into
No
this.
problem. Yeah, and this is kind of a complex workspace to use. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. If you feel like you don't want to have to navigate with this, that's totally fine too. Use the chat and I can even place, your number for you. So.
And it can be hard to see some of the writing. So feel free to practice with the Zoom, and the Zoom function, once you get the hang of it, really makes it easier to read all the small text.
And if you move something that you didn't want to move, you can just undo it by hitting Control Z on your laptop. All right, so it looks like most people are working on strategy 2. And what we're going to do right now is you guys can go through each of the strategies. So go from 1, 2 to 3 to 4. And then I'll be able to place these Post-it notes and I'll give you guys a brief summary of all the voting. So it looks like everybody's focused on strategy 2, partnering with communications experts to develop a message and standardized brand to promote physical activity. All right, it looks like most people are on strategy 3. Professionals in physical activity and public health should inform mass media professionals about the effects of physical activity on health and strategies for increasing physical activity. All right, nice work, everybody. It looks like we're moving on to strategy 4. For most people, this is going to be professionals in physical activity and public health should optimize the application of social media and technologies in campaigns to promote physical activity. So really focused on social media and technology. Awesome. We'll give you guys about another 30 seconds to place those, and then I'm going to have you guys help me place where this sticky note for each of these strategies should go based on kind of where the average of our responses lies. So I think we're ready to do so. So for strategy 1, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. You guys just read through it, so you should be able to remember it. Like I said, if you want to reference any of the other ones, feel free to scroll over to the right-hand side and you can view those there. So for strategy 1, it looks like we see this as very high impact for Kansas City, but it looks like it's going to be more of a challenging idea to launch a regional physical activity campaign. You know, it's kind of a large undertaking, but according to you guys, it's going to have a high impact on the city. So looks like we're right around this region for strategy 1. We're going to bring that to the front so we can see that. All right, then strategy 2, partnering with communications experts to develop a brand. It looks like this also has a relatively high impact, but this is going to be one of those quick wins for us. This is going to be the low-hanging fruit for us to take advantage of right away. So let's say the average is right about there. All right, we're going to bring that to the front. Awesome. We'll move on to 3. Professionals in PA and public health should inform mass media professionals about the effects of physical activity. So I can see things. I'm going to move around a little bit. It looks like this is kind of a mixed bag for how difficult we think it is. Some people thought it was, you know, this is a hard thing to do, to reach out to these individuals in mass media and, you know, promote public health campaigns that can sometimes be difficult to do. Some people thought it was more of a quick win, but it had a low impact. So we're going to go kind of right in the middle here. All right, and then on to strategy 4. This is using social media and technologies for physical activity campaigns. It looks like this is kind of middle of the road impact wise, but it's also low hanging fruit. It can be accomplished, you know, relatively easily. So we're going to put that right about here, kind of right below strategy 2. We'll move this up a little bit. Where did strategy 2 go? There it is.
Great. While Bryce is like adjusting the formatting on these, maybe let's talk about some of these strategies a little bit more and why we think that they might be placed where they were. So maybe let's just start out with strategy 1. So strategy 1 is launching a regional physical activity campaign to educate people about effective behavioral strategies for increasing physical activity. So this, to me, is what I showed earlier with something like Move Your Way or Active People, Healthy Nation, physical activity campaign to try to inform people about ways to be physically active. So I guess maybe we'll start with, do we agree with where Bryce placed this sticky note? Anyone want to chime in with yes or no, and then, or maybe talk about why it was maybe placed in this high impact, but also high challenge box.
Well, one of the things I had placed it kind of more on that kind of on the challenge side, is just getting all the stakeholders together. But plus, I think to implement strategy 2 and kind of get the branding created and working with partners, mainly probably working with a lot of different core work groups to create that brand would help facilitate the longer term campaign that you would want to roll out to the region.
Anyone else want to have any other comments? I mean, all of those things made sense to me. The biggest one was and again, I'm not a media professional, so this is where I kind of look to you, to this group, but my assumption is that these campaigns are also very expensive, which is obviously a challenge.
Definitely. And I think it would be like, getting those grants raised to help fund those campaigns.
Well, and there's different pots of money. So when I read government health agencies, my hope and experience has been that there are already earmarked funds for such campaigns so that we're not starting cold with a cold pitch. So, and those government nonprofit partnerships are fairly well proven in terms of how effective the nonprofits can be in terms of helping to get the word out, where government is not quite as good about that. So, but they can give us money to do it. Oh, I have a cat who wants input.
Any other, and so Bryce is now, as we're having this conversation, he's starting to fill in the other pieces of the mural board, which are the barriers to success, how to overcome those barriers, who can implement things like that. So just another way of that we're trying to take notes. We'll come back to that as well and dive into those specific things a little bit more as we continue the discussion. Any other comments about strategy 1? Meanwhile, strategy 2, it falls under the high impact, easy to implement, potential starting point for implementation process. So strategy 2 is partnering with communications experts to develop communication messages and a standardized brand to promote physical activity. And again, a layperson looks at this, to me, the distinction between strategy 1 and 2 would be developing a whole campaign in strategy 1 versus a more targeted approach in strategy 2. That's how I'm interpreting it.
Can I just speak a little bit from experience? Because I've just had the experience of working with Dr. Catherine Satterwhite at the Health and Human Services, the Office of the Secretary of, and we started our discussions in April about trying to do something around physical activity and mental health. And it was always spirited. It was always met with enthusiasm. The ideas I felt heard and seen from their group. We did an interaction around the National Youth Sports Strategy as part of the sports sector lead. I kind of took that on, and it basically tabled my thoughts on the physical activity piece until later, because it kind of folded into the sports sector work. But then also COVID kind of ratcheted up for them. That definitely that was something that they found very important. And then since we kind of turned the corner on this fall and started working together on putting together a public forum that's next Wednesday, they have been nothing but great to work with, enthusiastic, using their technology, no money yet, and but gave me the opportunity to shop around for a sponsor of the public forum. I chose not to do that, so it's now just something we're doing as a kind of a give back to the Kansas City community. But the experience has been really positive. I just thought I'd throw that in there. It kind of speaks to that strategy.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for sharing those experiences. I think mine are similar to yours.
I mean, Robin, I kind of see it as, the need. I mean, God love government officials, and communications folks can be fantastic, but they're so tasked. So I just see those two things as almost being hand in hand in terms of bring in the folks who are the communications professionals who can come in. I think you had Brad in the last meeting from Brandwell, put together the messaging so that it's ready to go, that it's not too much government speak, that it's, all those obstacles that come out of different communication channels and agencies, and then work with government agencies to then tap into both funding and then just getting the word out to constituents. And it's sort of this like a stamp of approval in some ways to have like some government backing, even if it's just as, partially sponsored by or supported by. And I would think too, coming out of the pandemic, that municipalities in particular around the region are looking for ways of, we're just kind of in a unique moment to launch this in light of the spotlight on the need for just the savior it's been to be able to go outside during lockdown, and so mental and physical health. So I think governments might be a little more inclined to partner with us on this. But I would see the communications professionals putting together the messaging and then just having it as a package to then for nonprofits, and not just nonprofit health organizations, but other nonprofits serving those personas that Brad had talked about in the last meeting, like creating those target audiences. So working with nonprofits that are working with the target populations that we want to target.
Those are great points, Amy. And I might ask you, as as you put on your Bike Walk KC hat, there, of course, I'm curious as to your thoughts about how a regional general, say, physical activity campaign aligns with other existing campaigns within individual organizations. Is there is there an openness and kind of encouragement for something like that, a connector between all the different individual organizations, or is there some level of maybe, I don't want to say it too negatively, but like a turf war, or worry that might take away from their own individual work? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's less about turf war and more about diluting one another's messaging. So if we could make it easy to customize, you provide enough cookie cutter messaging or kind of packaged, but for a bike ped organization, there are opportunities for us to hang our own messaging on that, to say we're part of a larger community with these goals. So in working with the different nonprofits, I'm thinking like nonprofits like Scouts, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, like it's providing an opportunity within this campaign's larger messaging that folks can then say, this is how we fit into that, and this is how we can hang our messaging. So it's making it really easy to integrate messaging. Because I think sure, there's some turf wars here and there, but for the most part, all of the nonprofits, we're wanting to just create better community, and community is key. So if we can find ourselves in that messaging and tailor it the way we need to, it serves both the larger campaign, this campaign, and our own agencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Robin, on strategy too, I think the reason why I thought that it was high impact and probably easier to implement is that you showed some wonderful examples of Move Your Way and Active People Healthy Nation, they already have templates in which we could use facts and figures from a national level. I think all we would have to do then is elevate interest and then maybe tailor it to a more regional lens. Using just the national figures, you could still go out to a lot of the nonprofit organizations. And then as we establish more interest, get them further down in the customer journey per se, and start layering in specific maybe stats about KC.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I was curious as to everyone's impressions of these existing campaigns, if they're worthwhile and or whether they're too distant from what we might be interested in. So, any other comments?
And I think as well that, you know, when you create that, even though we could use, as Elaine said, a lot of some of the existing campaigns out there, but it's creating a hub for the Kansas City region where some people have access to this centralized location that would contain all the information. And I'm trying to think of the website that was shared in the core meeting, that Atlanta Beltway, the Beltline, how they had a great hub. I mean, I kind of envision something as, you know, we start creating this brand for, you know, awareness campaign, is having a hub like the Beltline that just has all this information about how to be active in the Kansas City community. And I'll share that. I actually found that link. I'll share it in the chat.
Great, thanks.
Robin, I didn't know where this would fit, but I think some of the challenge or possible barriers would be making sure, if we're talking about equity, we need to not be tone deaf in terms of some of this messaging may be met very differently by different communities.
Yeah.
You know, Bike Walk KC works in a lot of different communities where they say, well, as you know, as someone with Black or brown skin, when I ride my bicycle, I also worry about getting pulled over by the cops and being asked, do I own that bicycle, and having to prove that. So the idea of creating, you know, getting people more engaged in physical activity, you know, I think we as a committee have to decide how much we want to incorporate that reality, that there are different realities. People have different barriers. So I think that's something that we need to talk about.
That's a great point, and I'm glad to see Bryce is taking a note on that. And you know, I mentioned in the last meeting that built environment, Kansas City built environment Twitter is one of the most active Twitter communities I've ever seen. And at the moment, there is the sidewalks versus bike lane Twitter debate playing out. And it's exactly what Amy was mentioning. Voices being included, voices being heard, different voices. Yes. And yeah, I think that probably actually touches on really all of these strategies in some way, probably. Yeah. So we're having a great discussion here about strategy 1 and 2. So maybe before we move on to the other strategies, let's just maybe move over, and I'm not sure what screen people are looking at here. I'm back on Zoom and watching Bryce enter in on the Miro, but other people might be on Miro watching him type in. But maybe if we could go back to strategy 1 and focus on the barriers to success, overcoming barriers, who else might need to be involved in the other pieces there. So Bryce is zoomed in there a little bit on the rankings that we did for strategy 1 last meeting in terms of implemented locally, implemented in the next 3 years, 5 to 10 years, and likelihood to improve physical activity and health. The barriers that we've got listed all right is collaboration efforts with other sectors can be difficult, time consuming and expensive. Thanks, Brooke, for joining us. I'll just note as you leave, and if others need to leave, we'll send out the meeting minutes in next week in the form of recording and all of the pick charts and other mural boards you'll have access to for actually as long as we're doing this process. So thanks for joining us. Grant writing to fund campaigns takes a large amount of time and effort. Any other barriers that people want to either vocalize, or you're welcome to just enter them yourself on the mural board as well, or throw them in the chat.
I think it's a little bit about capacity, how I can imagine government health agencies right now are a little tired, little overworked. So, just depending on timing, I don't know, again, this is a unique time, so.
Yes, absolutely. And we've certainly seen that locally. I will use this as an opportunity to say that a little over a year ago, for the first year of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan, we hosted a physical activity summit. There was a 3-quarter-day summit, and we had our keynote speaker was someone from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity branch. And we've maintained communication with that group, and they have expressed willingness to assist with all of our efforts in the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. At the moment, we haven't had an ask, but I think now that we're deep into implementation projects for other sectors and development of mass media campaigns here, I think we're getting to that point. So that's a potential, I guess, Bryce, if you scroll over to who can implement, or there might be some, I would put maybe CDC, assistance from CDC as in that process. Maybe if we talk about overcoming barriers, what are current barriers either to collaboration with existing organizations that may be doing this work, and to funding, if we think about those two things? And I'll just start out with funding. And Bill and I have commiserated over this before, that it is a challenge locally from local foundations, health foundations, to get funding for physical activity initiatives. There are lots of needs in our community, for sure. If you just look at funded projects from many of these foundations, they are heavily weighted towards healthy eating, which perhaps rightfully so. But that is a challenge for organizations to do physical activity related projects. There is what we call an overarching priority. Hey, Toriano. There are the Kansas City Physical Activity Plans has as an overarching priority, which means it's kind of connects all of the different sectors, is we are working towards increased local funding for physical activity initiatives from some of these health organizations. Now that requires, kind of really collective approaches and collective discussions with some of these funding agencies to say, hey, yes, there is a need here, an unmet need. So I would just say that is a reality and something that we are working on behind the scenes a little bit.
And that's, I think, so one of the other things that could work toward overcoming the barriers as we're talking about a strategy too, and creating the messaging we can go out to these agencies with, if we already have some studies and maybe it's just using like some of the existing work that's already been done, but research that has shown the importance of physical activity, and we've created that messaging for them. And it's not something that they have to do. I think that would help greatly. And then also, as I mentioned before, is just working with our other core work groups who are already probably working with some of these agencies, and just really building some collaboration with the groups that are working with some of the health agencies.
I think too, see if I can say this succinctly, there are a number of nonprofits. So I want to say, like with Marlboro or with the Latino Health for All, they're doing, very grassroots in their direct community within, sometimes 10 block radius of doing more around healthy eating, physical activity, health and wellness in general. So as a local funder who may be funding or have recently funded some of those projects, I would, if I were them, I would want to ask this group, how are you using, it's not just us handing over messaging, but how are we incorporating things that are already working at a very micro grassroots level? Which from a funder's perspective, if we can say we've had input from these different groups, they're teaching us what really works within their community, and we're incorporating that into our approach, then when you talk to that funder, it's not asking for new money, it's asking them, we're now collectively working with your other grantees to take everything to the next level, and with further reach and whatnot. So I would say, I don't know where to put that or how to put that on the board. But I think that would be a strategy. I actually just had a meeting with Menorah Heritage Foundation, and they have a Healthy for Life grant opportunity, and they're very much interested in data and results, and how you can take that, how a project like this is ready to take the next step, or needs some sort of bridge funding in order to take the next step to have a broader reach. So a lot of it is making the case that we're not starting from scratch, and that we're leveraging resources, and funders are funding things that they're already funding, but just getting to the next level. Does that make sense, Robin?
It does. Yes, it does. And it's a really on point comment around engaging with these community groups. We've had, I think, a reasonable amount of success working with kind of regional organizations, for example, Bike Walk KC. I'm not sure I've had as much with the local neighborhood groups like what you're talking about, and I think that's something that we're missing, and something that I think could be potentially more powerful, especially to funders. You're exactly right. One thing that we've tried to do, and I placed it in the chat box as a way to communicate the need for physical activity initiatives in our region, is in the form of a Kansas City report card. And so that's in the link. report cards are easy to understand generally. And we chose that approach with that in mind, as we can say, hey, you've got a C- or a D in this particular area. So that's something we plan on doing. That report card that you see in approximately 5-year intervals. So we've got a couple more years until we come out with the next version, but you know, that's something that we can consider, these inclusion of local groups, local level actions incorporated into some of these, into this report card for the next version.
I think that really speaks to what Melinda was talking about with it being a hub for KC. So, you know, if I have the ability to look up activities in my area or in my community, I'm more likely to join that group. So establishing those relationships on the community level, I think, is pretty crucial.
From like a community perspective, like a resident perspective, you're talking?
Yeah, I mean, if we really want the kids to be participating in physical activity, I mean, the first thing their parents are going to look at is what's near me, you know, what groups can I join?
You just tell me to be quiet because I don't mind sharing my opinion and my input. I like the idea of a report card and kind of doing that, you know, A-, F, C+. I would say that I would be careful about balancing that, because just from fundraising sort of donor psychology is that when you present too much negative information all at once, they feel like I can't, like that's an unsolvable problem. My participation is not going to make a difference. So I would balance, but funders, you know, foundations and whatnot, that is an appropriate tool for certain audiences. I would say people are more inspired by, you know, success stories and sort of inspirational, even aspirational. So I would balance the general kind of overall stats, and especially if we're talking about, you know, failure or F or not doing well, has to be balanced with some inspiration. Otherwise people are gonna, you know, I said up front, I am not, physical activity is not something I naturally go for. I mean, my weight has been all over. I don't like feeling like I'm being shamed into doing something. And I think for young women, especially, that idea of physical activity is so closely linked to body image that we have to be a bit careful about sort of that, the negative messaging. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, let's just say, yeah, the D- for the built environment, but Chris Harris has created this wonderful neighborhood park with basketball hoops and golf courses. And yeah.
Jennifer Lynn has created a chapter of Black Girls Do Bike here in Kansas City. And you know, the Facebook group is fantastic, and so we need those stories to motivate. Otherwise, those report cards or that negative messaging may actually do have a reverse intent. You know, not the impact that we want to have.
And that's great, and I think that's where we, as far as the media people that come in telling those stories. So yeah, we would definitely have to spread the word out to the TV stations and the newspaper and the websites to further that those groups like that biking group, because that's a phenomenal story.
It is.
Yeah.
And I would say people with disabilities too. I think, again, just the stereotypes around being physical active, I think buff, I think skinny, I think they're like doing the power shakes every morning. Like, you know, most of us are not doing that. So the more that we can create images and highlight stories where every person can say at least one of those images or stories, I see myself in that, That's how we're going to have a bigger reach. Otherwise, we're going to be preaching to the choir of people who are already physically active.
And I think too,
oh, go ahead,
like
Melinda.
And not that we would use, obviously we can't use all their stuff verbatim or anything, but I do like one of the plans that you did show, the move your way. It's like your way. It's how you want to be physically active, and really having that message as top of mind. It's not at running, biking per se. It's however you want to be active. Just get out there and do something. And I think that is, I think you made a really good point. And that really, we have to keep, that in the back of our minds, that needs to be the message, is just getting people moving how they feel comfortable being active.
So that's a great comment, and it makes me think. And again, I'm such a layperson on this. I need your guidance, but I almost think that does at some level it. Do you decide that there needs to be, and maybe you guys have already said this in a different way, that it's almost multiple different messages based on the audience. So for example, you just said move your way, because it's moving however you want to do it. Likewise, the healthcare sector, they are doing exercise as medicine, which is an international campaign around using exercise as part of your addressing health conditions or health needs. Bill has movement is the medicine, which is related to that, So in like maybe in a healthcare setting, it's one messaging campaign. General public, it's another campaign. Maybe sports, it's another campaign. Is that making sense, or?
Yeah, you got to segment your message to your audience, so you're right on it.
I would also like to say that, by changing from trying to fund youth sports to trying to fund physical activity and physical education, I was able to receive grants from both the Kauffman Foundation and Health Forward Foundation. Whereas when I asked for money for youth sports, they didn't want to help me. So it does matter to some of these institutional donors how you word your grant requests.
Yeah, exactly. And, that's starting to get into like the weeds of things, right? Sport versus physical activity versus exercise versus, moderate to vigorous physical activity, all of those terms that I, spend my life swimming through.
And just to throw one more word into the deal, what I've been reading recently is it's about rhythmic movement that is what's good for mental health. So it's now it's not only is it moving, but it's moving rhythmically. That's good for the brain, which is just into the weeds.
Yeah. We're working on a project with UMKC and Kansas City Public Schools, and we did qualitative focus groups with teens and their parents about what type of after-school sport opportunities, programming they would like. And at the end of it, the program moved from youth engagement in sports to move more, get more, to exactly, because teenage girls did not like sports. They liked move more. So anyway, important considerations. We've got about 12 minutes left to go. And so what I think we'll probably do is maybe finish the discussion around strategies 1 and 2, and then leave just 5 minutes or so to talk about the next meeting, and just any other general announcements. You know, I know Bill's got an announcement around some of the things that he's been working on, and so we can open it up to the group there. So, I mean, Bryce, are there any things you've been doing such a great job taking notes? Any things that you think need more follow-up on?
Yeah, maybe kind of wrapping our minds around the difference between these two. And then it looks like the largest gaps that we have in our conversation thus far. And there is, you know, a lot of our conversation kind of goes both ways, with strategy one being more focused on like a broad campaign, larger campaign that can, you know, potentially be multi-sector, et cetera. And then strategy two being, you know, creating a standardized brand to promote. So that's kind of maybe on a smaller level that we've kind of been thinking, but it could also be a larger level, as you guys know, with branding and those considerations. So I think the difference between the two and like who we're missing, is that the same? Are those the same groups that we're missing? Kind of those nonprofits in Kansas City, local neighborhood groups, and regional organizations, and then, you know, obviously the national organizations that have these frameworks put in place, some of the, you know, frameworks that you showed, Robin. And then who can actually implement these within Kansas City? I know you've talked about this a lot, Amy, and I feel like we still have time to determine who those specific groups are, but kind of wrapping our minds around what those groups are, and if there's any more that maybe we should include for the brand versus the campaign. So we've done a lot of talking, you know, on strategy one. This conversation's been great. I know when we were looking at the pick chart, considering strategy two, that's kind of that low hanging fruit. We thought it had a really high impact, pretty easy to implement if we wanted to create a brand, whatever that looks like. So if we want to go back to strategy two, I think that's probably where we have the largest gaps. So maybe like who can implement this? If we think a little bit harder about that, that might be a good starting place, and kind of use about 5 minutes here before we give our final update. So sorry, go ahead, Amy. Or Melinda, sorry.
So, and I was just thinking that, and this would be maybe not this group. I know it's like, as we talked about, unless they want to stay on, the mass media group will move on into kind of tactics and then into implementation. But it seems like if we get the right core group of people together, that the mass media group could be the one to help facilitate and implement the branding for the campaign. And like that, and kind of working with the other core work groups, because there's a lot already going on with them, and bringing in what they're already doing and putting that into the plan, I think would put us way ahead.
Yeah, that's
I think
a good point.
The way the national plan was worded, and their tactics made it sound a little bit different, but it was like, you know, physical activity professionals should partner with, and it's like, well, you're taking this big group of people that aren't, you know, related to be able to implement this branding strategy, and it's really got to come from a centralized area, I think, and then, you know, be disseminated out. So I think, you know, working with, you know, the mass media team, working with weighing in to create the plan, the branding, and the messaging is the way that it would be quicker to get it out instead of relying on external sources.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I'm just jotting some notes here. We definitely have the, you know, starting pieces of bringing everybody to the table. And that's, you know, why the KCPA plan came to be, bringing together people from various sectors and the experts in those sectors. So
I guess maybe to build on that, sorry, Bryce, didn't mean to interrupt you, but to build on that, so what additional individuals or organizations might be missing at this point that would need to be involved to implement that work? You know, are we missing, you know, like an ad agency, representatives from an ad agency, or are we missing, you know, some other, you know, newspaper or television or something?
Yeah, I think definitely, you know, the more we could bring in some various ad agency people would help. And I know we've kind of, and I'm not sure how involved they're going to be with Brandwell. I know they have some other things that they're working on. But if they can be more involved, that would definitely be a plus. They would be a great group to have involved. But I think we should also look to other agencies that might be willing to get involved.
Yeah, I think taking some time and doing our homework and talking with some of the groups that, as I said earlier, are already doing some successful. I just think we have to be careful that we're not coming across as everything's broken, or, you know, nothing's working, and we're going to hand you the holy grail book of how to do this, and you're going to have some neighborhoods going, you haven't visited us, have you? we've got a kids you know, playing soccer. I think there's a lot of communities that it's less about going to them, asking them what we can do for them, but more about what are you doing really well, and how can we help amplify messaging and how you're doing these activities and how you're getting the word out already. So I think it's, you know, don't put me on the spot. I mean, just some of the partners that we work with at Bike Walk KC, and I think it would be worth having someone from this group, or a couple of folks, just asking what's working for you in this area, and making sure that's reflected in the end product. I don't know if about implementation, you know, going to them about implementation, because that's asking them to kind of do some free labor when they're already so over-tapped in some of these groups. But at least let's take what their successes and tools are that are already working, and incorporate it.
And there are also people from, and I didn't know anybody personally, but just for an example, and this is where maybe some funding could come in as well, if you had marketing people from, let's say, a Blue Cross Blue Shield, who would be an organization that would have an invested interest in this topic, and somebody that was from their marketing team, which I say could also maybe lead into some funding. So just kind of thinking of maybe some other local organizations like that would just, their kind of focus is on health, and if anybody knows anybody that we can invite to the table, or we could also do, I guess, some cold calling as well.
I think taking a look at the different chambers of commerce, African American Chamber of Commerce, Asian American Chamber of Commerce, I think many of those organizations, more affinity group organizations, chambers, have a lot of diverse activities and people with different backgrounds and interests and physical activity and sense of community. I think that would be worth seeing if there are folks with some of the skill sets or backgrounds that we're would like to tap. Because if we're talking about trying to reach different communities, I think those are some of those community leaders that we'd want to get involved. Sorry, my cat wants to be very involved.
Cat really wants to participate.
I had the opportunity to meet with Jenny Housley yesterday. She's the CMO at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. She's quite interested in the work we're doing here. So I think there are a lot of community leaders that we have already have people on the team that have access to. I think it's important that we just get this message right. I don't know if we have to go outside to an agency to find the message. I think Robin and Bryce and Shelley have, you know, done the work. The national plan has been well written. We are really gleaning off of it so that we do work locally with this. I think Amy's right. Going out and asking questions and asking for pain points and asking for what's working and listening, is always the best first step to helping a community and lifting the people up in the community that are already doing the work. That's, I think, key to any successful endeavor when it comes to helping build up better. And, we're an amazing team. I just, every time I hear you guys talk, I just am blown away by how talented and equipped we are. So I'm not into going outside of the group we have. I think we have everyone we need on the team. We just need to get focused and make it work.
Well, I'm always happy to kind of end the conversation on a compliment. So maybe what we'll do, just because we've got just about a minute left. This was a great conversation. We've really made it through just 2 of the 4 strategies. So this is exactly where I thought we would be at this point. So for our next meeting, the November meeting, we'll continue any other discussions that we've got on these 2 strategies, and then focus on strategies 3 and 4. Now, I will say we'll come back to these strategies throughout this process multiple times, especially as we start talking about the tactics. The tactic discussion with other sectors has gone quicker than the strategy discussion. We spend most of our time with strategies. Tactics tend to fall in line a little bit quicker, but the plan will be for November to try to get through strategies 3 and 4. And then December, we can potentially get through all of the tactics for all of the strategies within one session. We might have to go a little bit over into another one, but we're right about where I anticipated us being. I can't remember what we had set up as our reoccurring meeting, whether it was the 4th Tuesday or the last Tuesday of each month. Does anyone remember or have any thoughts about the next meeting being on November 23rd or November 30th? I know 23rd is Thanksgiving week, so some of us may be out. So the 30th may work out better, but 30th?
Okay.
I would say 30th for me as well.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll plan on November 30th, 12:30 to 2 again. We'll send out another evite and the minutes from this meeting, which will be a recording and the mural boards and things like that, and any other helpful links. We'll send those out next week. Bryce just pasted in our survey where you can throw in people that might be missing from this conversation that should be added. They'll be added to our distribution list. And then before we go, even though we're a little bit over, I'll just say, does anyone have any general announcements that they would like to make for this group? I know, Bill, you've got a couple things going, and we'll include them in the newsletter. If you got to hop off, Elaine, that's no problem. Yeah, take it away, Bill. We can't hear you, Bill, if you're talking.
So on Wednesday of next week, a week from tomorrow at 10 a.m., we're going to have a presentation on physical activity and mental health. We're going to have researchers from USC, UMKC, and K-State presenting data on how physical activity is good for mental health. All 3 of them are focused on the whole connectivity between being physically active and the benefits of that. We're also going to have Emily Snow from Blue Cross and Blue Shield present on trauma-informed care and the impact the COVID has had on our teens' mental health. Psychologist who works with teenagers dealing with trauma and the results of the depression and anxiety that have resulted from isolation and inactivity. And then we're going to have Michelle Wimes from Children's Mercy Hospital talk about the disproportionate impact that COVID has had on inner city youth, urban youth, and bring her perspective from the DEI side. The final thing will be an interview I did with 3 high school seniors from Lincoln Prep. Excited to hear from them about how it was critical for them to be connected to sports during COVID and what that has meant for them, not just for their athletic career, which they're undefeated on their way to a state title, hopefully, but also how it kept them engaged in school.
That's great. If you have a chance, throw that registration link in the chat box. Should be a great presentation.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, perfect. And then I know Amy, yeah, you want to talk about the Bike Walk KC Bike Walk Skate event? I know you threw the link in the chat.
I think Melinda did that for me. Thank you.
Oh, Melinda, awesome.
We do. So November 11th, we have sort of an after hours for Bike Walk KC members or future members. It's a free event if you want to come out to the ice rink. We have a board member who is one of the volunteer Zamboni drivers, and we're doing a Bike Walk skate event. So if you're not a member of Bike Walk KC, you want to meet some of the cool people who are. I don't ice skate. That's okay. If you do, come on down. It's a free event. We'd love to see everyone. That's November 11th from 9:30 to 11. We've got the rink after hours.
Great. I know, but I'll bring my hockey skates. Bryce, you can bring your hockey skates.
I'm
He's
just
a
going to bring the
Wisconsin boy.
Charmin, Charmin, and wrap it around me.
Right. Any other announcements people want to make to this group? Great. Well,
there's also a race. The Movement is a Medicine race is on November 28th, and I'll put the sign up for that too. If you want to be a part of a 5K or walk to raise awareness for mental health in teenagers. We just lost another teenager to suicide this weekend from Shawnee Mission East. So,
oh man,
yeah, just horrible.
Gosh,
she was a freshman at KU, but just sad.
Yeah, very sad. Well, on a lighter note or a more positive note, that this discussion has been great. I'm always re-energized coming out of these meetings. So thanks everybody for your participation, and we'll look forward to seeing you in November. Thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
Bye.